If you are concerned about the course America is on, if you want to change the course America is on before it's too late, Dinesh D'Souza's new book, Obama's America's Required Reading, Unmaking the American Dream. It's also the story of a movie, Obama's Dream 2016. And Dinesh D'Souza joins us again on the Common Sense Club to talk about this book. Dinesh, nice to have you. Congrats on the book. How you doing?
Hey, thanks very much. Good to be on the show.
Fantastic. So, first of all, can America survive 4 more years of Barack Obama? That's the big question here.
Well, we'll probably survive, but we won't be America. In other words, look, since World War II, America has been a superpower, and since 1992, when the Soviet Union collapsed, America's been the sole superpower. And what does that mean? We've got the world's largest economy. We've stood for prosperity, and we've also been able to project American influence and also American cultural values throughout the world. And I think that is what Obama wants to end. In other words, Obama wants to, in a way, pull back on the U.S. economy and reduce America's footprint in the world because he sort of thinks we've been stepping on the world. So we've got a very unusual situation, a president who actually wants to see a smaller America.
A calculated destruction of the American dream.
Yes, and now I should say right away that I'm not suggesting that Obama is some kind of a traitor or he hates America. He simply subscribes to an ideology that sees America as a kind of rogue nation in the world. We keep invading other countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. We have surrogates like Israel that are occupying Muslim land. We consume food and resources and energy out of proportion to our population. So you can almost say that Obama is a global redistributor. He wants America to have less so the rest of the world can have more.
Well, how does a person like that become president of the United States? I mean, that's for the first time in American history, as you write, we have a president who seeks decline, who's attempting to downsize the country.
Right. That's unheard of, right? And it shows that Obama's different than Clinton and Kerry or any previous Democrat. I mean, even Jimmy Carter, bungler though he was trying to strengthen the American economy, was trying to build America's place in the world. Now, he might have failed, but he was at least attempting that. I think the difference with Obama is he has a different agenda. Now, how does he get elected? By not revealing that agenda. I mean, Obama is a master at sort of camouflage. And so, for example, when he talks about the 1% and the 99%, he lets Americans think that he's talking only about redistribution in America. But in reality, Obama has a global vision. To him, all Americans are rich. America is the 1%, and the rest of the world is the 99%. So ultimately, Americans are signing on for something, but Obama has something quite different up his sleeve.
So what's his utopia? What is his ultimate goal, stated or unstated?
If we look back at history to the year 1500, this is before the age of exploration. This is right around the time Columbus set out. The world was very different. First of all, living standards were very similar around the world. And second of all, power was distributed equally among a number of countries. You had China, you had India, you had the Arab Islamic world. Europe was kind of a backwater civilization, and of course America just had some American Indians running around. Obama wants to restore the world before colonialism, and what that means is he's sort of trying to undo 500 years of history. He sees this era of Western dominance, what in the colleges they call Eurocentrism, Europe and the West being at the center, as being a really bad thing. One civilization, the white man's civilization, if you will, has dominated the world for 5 centuries, and Obama sees America as the latest leader of this sort of Western alliance. So I think Obama's goal, long term, and he's hoping to achieve it in 8 years, is to pull America down from being number one, to end American superiority, and to essentially level the playing field between America and the rest of the world. He's doing that with nuclear weapons. He's doing that across the board.
You did a lot of research for this book and traveled and talked with his half-brother Mark and his half-brother George and his grandmother. And what did you learn that is most revealing when you talk about what his ultimate goals are here?
Well, the thing is, first of all, I was doing that journey for a film. It's 2016, a film that's out in theaters, and it'll be in 700 theaters the end of this month. So go to 2016themovie.com to find out where that film is playing. My book is called Obama's America, and what I found in interviewing people who knew his dad and knew his mom was that Obama has two kinds of relatives. In a way, he has the relatives who are on his side, and he has the relatives that are, I call them sellouts. These are the people Obama hates, and he wants nothing to do with them. A classic example is his youngest brother, George. George Obama lives in a slum, in a hut, shanty, in the Huruma slum of Nairobi. This is a guy who has to walk through sewage to get out of the slum. He lives in a one-room shanty, and he's living not in American poverty, but in third world poverty. Obama is the most powerful guy in the world, and a multimillionaire to boot. He won't contribute $1 to help George. Now, this is odd, right? I mean, this isn't just hypocritical, but it's particularly odd because the centerpiece of Obama's whole philosophy is that, as he puts it, quoting from the Bible, Obama does, we are our brother's keeper. So, wow, here he's asking us to fork out tax money to help people we don't know, and he won't put out $1 of his own money, of which he has a lot, to help his own half-brother.
Why? Why is he a sellout?
He's a sellout because, number one, George, in interviews, has said, listen, our dad, which is to say Barack Obama Sr., now Obama idealizes his dad, right? His autobiography is Dreams from My Father. He portrays his father as sort of a Gandhi, a Mandela, a great freedom fighter. In reality, his father was not that. He was he was a philanderer at Harvard. He was a chronic drunk driver. He killed a man. Eventually, he got into so many drunk driving accidents that he drove drunk into a tree and killed himself. So Obama had this fantasy about his dad. Well, all his other siblings know that the dad wasn't really like that. And so George doesn't worship at the altar of Barack Obama Sr. And the second fact of it is that George Obama is, to put it bluntly, kind of a conservative. He doesn't blame the poverty of Kenya on the West. He says that Africa needs to become more self-reliant, more entrepreneurial. So when Obama hears this stuff, he's like, I'm done with George. George is sort of George is sort of a Romney supporter, so to speak. And so Obama wants nothing to do with him.
And same deal with his half-brother, Mark?
The half-brother Mark hasn't taken any ideological positions, but think of it this way. He's a physics major from Stanford. He has an MBA from, I believe, Emory. He works for an entrepreneurial firm in China. He's married to a Chinese woman. So this is a guy who sort of lives, if you will, the self-determined life. He's not asking anybody for help. He doesn't go around whining about his condition. So again, Obama describes in his own book when he met Mark, the first question he asked Mark is, don't you want to move back to Kenya? And Mark goes, well, gee, there are no jobs in Kenya for a physicist. And then Obama says, what do you think about our dad? And Mark goes, I couldn't care less about the guy. He beat my mom. He was a horrible father. He never looked after any of his wives or children. And the moment he says this, Obama is done with him. Obama says, I never wanted to see this guy again. And so this is Obama. We think of him as this big uniter. And this is what he put out, this propaganda.
I'm waiting for the 60 Minutes interview. I guess I'll be waiting a long time. More with Dinesh D'Souza on the book Obama's America, Unmaking the American Dream after this. Don't go away. Back with our guest, Dinesh D'Souza. The book is Obama's America, Unmaking the American Dream. I often think, Dinesh, that sometimes we focus so much on Obama and what we don't know about him, but more and more every day we do know about him thanks to research like yours and the stuff the mainstream media ignores. But I wonder if the bigger issue isn't the fact the guy got elected. I mean, is the problem him and his worldview, or is the problem that enough people disregarded that, didn't pay enough attention to it, elected somebody with a very thin resume as president? Are we the problem, so to speak, or is he?
No, I think he is. I don't think the American people are. But here's the thing. There was an economic nosedive right before the election. In a way, McCain's, quote, experience became a negative, a liability. Obama was sort of elected on a little bit on wishful thinking. People thought that, look, finally we have an African-American leader who's not a Jesse Jackson, who's not an Al Sharpton, who's not a racial shakedown man, and he's telling us that he's a centrist, he's a unifier. Wouldn't it be great for America to have this kind of a guy, young, dynamic, represent us? So I think actually America voted kind of its best ideals, its best instincts in 2008. The problem was that Obama, in a way, sort of sold us a bill of goods. He pretended to be something that he's not. We're now sort of eerily aware that this is a very different guy than the prepackaged guy who we saw in 2008. I mean, look at the healthcare business, right? Obama could have easily gotten some Republican votes and made this a bipartisan bill had he bent even slightly in taking some ideas from the Republicans. But no, he was perfectly happy to slam this through on a party line vote. So one of the biggest programs in American history goes through with not a single Republican vote, and Obama didn't care. So he's that kind of a guy. He doesn't see critics; he sees enemies. He doesn't see wealthy people as people who have a moral obligation. They're just evil. They're the bad guys, and his politics is driven by that.
You know, yeah, okay. I'll grant you the defense of the electorate that put the guy in office 4 years ago. How is it, given what he's done to the country? I mean, literally everything's worse, and the decline that he's overseen. How's he in a position to be reelected?
Right, and let's put it this way. I mean, I have to be honest with you. You know, I think if Obama were a white guy, he'd be 10 points behind Romney right now. Obama is truly defying gravity, and he's defying gravity because what people are saying about him is, listen, I still like the guy, even though I'm very worried that his policies aren't working. And in some ways, I think here the Republicans are making a mistake. They're making a mistake of saying to the American people, yes, Obama's a nice guy, but he's a bungler. He's an amateur. And Obama's going to come back and say, well, listen, I inherited some problems, but, you know, I've really tried. Sure, I got a couple things wrong, but if you give me 4 more years, I'll get them all fixed. I'll learn from my mistakes. I think what I'm trying to say in my book, Obama's America, and the movie 2016, I'm saying no. This is not a matter of Obama being a bungler. He wants to downsize America. He wants to shrink the American economy. He may not be a racial reparations guy. He isn't. But he is a global reparations guy. So once even Democrats realize what Obama stands for, I think in a way then there's a danger that Obama will be separated from his own natural constituency.
Beyond the movie that you have contributed to mightily in the book and the work of some to expose, what Obama stands for, and really, as you talk about in the book, wanting the death of a superpower, us. Unprecedented that the President of the United States would be rooting for, the United States of America to be less of a country than it is. His associations speak volumes. And is there any chance any of those, the 80 days to the election and some change, we're going to get there? Frank Marshall Davis is one that I think is a prime example. You talk about him in your book, and there have been a few other things that have come out lately talking about the relationship he had with Obama's father. He talks about about Frank Marshall Davis in his book, but he only calls him Frank. But talk about Frank Marshall Davis and Obama's association with him and what it says, and whether you think this is going to see the light of day before the election.
Yeah, in my earlier book, I focused on Obama's dad, and it's true that Obama gets his inspiration from his dad, but he actually learned chapter and verse of his sort of third world ideology, and not so much from his dad, but from a series of mentors. I call these guys Obama's founding fathers. I begin with Frank Marshall Davis, a communist in Hawaii, who was his mentor for 8 years, from the age of 10 to 17, 18. Then there was a Palestinian radical he hooked up with at Columbia. This is a guy who was a member of the Palestine National Council. He's been called by one magazine a professor of terror. He hooked up with a Brazilian socialist at Harvard Law School. This is a guy who has called for China, India, Brazil, and other countries to, quote, gang up on the United States. He actually says that we're number one in the world, but number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 should get together and pull us down off our pedestal, and that would be a good thing. And then, of course, we know about Bill Ayers, domestic terrorist, has in common with bin Laden. He tried to blow up the Pentagon. We know about Jeremiah Wright. So, I mean, these are the guys that Obama chose. They're not guys he bumped into on the street. He sought them out. He befriended them and was close to these guys for years. So these are his formative influences. You're right. There was almost an active media campaign to suppress this information in 2008. I don't think it can be suppressed. I mean, our film, for example, is going into 700 theaters by the end of the month. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for Americans to get this information and help us get it out, because I think if Americans really know what's going on, get the information, I think I trust America to make sound decisions.
And it's not just who we hung out with and that worldview. It's a policy decision after policy decision. Prime example. What's the one state in America that's working right now? Fastest job growth, lowest unemployment, North Dakota. Largely as a result of what? Oil and gas production that's happening right here. It is the talk of the nation. Big profile on Harold Hamm of the Washington Post over the weekend. I mean, national, international stories all the time. What does Obama want to do? Stop it. Meanwhile, as you point out in his book, he loves the idea of oil drilling, just not in the United States of America.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. Is a lot of people think, Obama's blocking oil drilling because he's an environmentalist. He's an Al Gore type of guy. Nonsense. Al Gore would like to see everybody use less carbon, have a smaller footprint, and so on. No, Obama is trying to enrich the previously colonized countries and at the expense of the colonizers. He wants the poorer countries like Colombia and Mexico to have more energy so they can come up. And he wants America and Canada and Europe to use less so we can go down.
It is chilling. It really is. We have about a minute left, but I'd like you to tell our listeners what's at stake. If he is reelected, what happens?
Well, I think, we're just going to see an acceleration, not just more of the same. I mean, more of the same is scary enough, right? If Obama's added $5 trillion to the national debt. Now, think of this. Bush's highest deficit was under $500 billion. Obama's lowest deficit annually is $1 trillion. That's the lowest. So if Obama adds another $5 trillion to the national debt, America will be $20 trillion in debt, $10 trillion of that added by one man, Obama. So we're looking at some fairly scary prospects. In the book, Obama's America, I look at the Middle East. I say, look, we've already lost Iran. We're losing Egypt right now thanks to Obama's help. What's left? Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia falls, that's the third leg of the tripod. The radical Muslims now have it in their sights to bring the whole Middle East under a single Islamic control.
Folks,
very, very alarming prospects for the United States and the Middle East.
Get the book.
For the next 4 years.
Obama's America, Unmaking the American Dream. We'll work hard.